Hi guys, how are you all doing? This is your podcast host Priyanka. Today I'm going to speak about a very important topic. But before that, let me ask you all a question. Now this question might make you squirm a little. At least that was my reaction when I was first asked this question by a couple of friends a few days back. So they asked me how I was adjusting to the new normal. And I found myself shifting uncomfortably and skirting around a topic, not knowing what to say. On thinking back, maybe this was because a part of me was and is still holding on to the past, to the old normal, to how things were back then when everything was quote unquote normal and just not new or old. That was the only normal that we knew back then. And now that things have changed, a part of me does not want to accept, a huge part of me does not want to accept that things have changed. It does not want to accept the absurdity of it all, the absurdity, the strangeness, the weirdness of this new normal that COVID-19 has brought along. Change, however, is inevitable. And the truth be told, we have to adjust to this change that is happening. So, in today's episode of Morning Chai and Ikigai, I thought I should discuss the elephant in the room. The elephant called COVID, that we wish wasn't there, but unfortunately is here to stay for the next few months at least. The good news, however, is that the human trials for the Oxford vaccine has all reached completion and is showing very promising results. So, God willing, we will have a vaccine by the start of 2021. I recall when news of COVID-19 first hit India, I was so shocked I almost had to pinch myself to snap out of that nightmare-like state. It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe that was happening. The news headlines seemed like loosely based lines from a dystopian, badly written dystopian novel, in fact. And I just couldn't believe it. And I'm sure most people were in the same position. But days changed into weeks, and then weeks changed to months, and then we got acquainted with the whole situation. Of course, we went through our own Kubler-Ross model of the 5 stages of grief. We went through all the 5 emotions. So we went through denial, and then anger, then bargaining. Of course, there was the depression phase, which we are still partly into. And then there is acceptance, which again we have entered, but not completely there yet. So now the situation is that we are well acquainted with the reality of the situation, of what coronavirus has left us with, the deadly coronavirus. But at the same time, we are not really happy with it. And how can we be? The frequent lockdowns that are happening, we are going in and out of lockdowns all over the world, but that's hardly helping. Add to that the healthcare professionals and frontline workers contracting COVID-19 from patients, the rising cases, people are flouting rules and then subjecting their family and their loved ones to the risk of contracting the virus. Besides, the virus keeps changing shape, so that is a double whammy because as soon as we find out things about the virus, it keeps changing itself. It's more like they say that life, when you find the key to the lock, life changes the lock or something like that. Yeah. So what do we do in this kind of situation? So of course, needless to mention, even those who have been living under a rock will know the cardinal rules that are to be followed during this pandemic. But we all need reminders every now and then. So I'm going to list them all over again. The 3 basic rules I'm going to quickly list. One is frequent and thorough washing of hands with soap and water. And of course, in situations where there is no soap and water, you can use your friendly hand sanitizer. One word of caution that I have to mention here is that please do not use a hand sanitizer when you're working in the kitchen or when you are near any source of fire or heat, because hand sanitizers contain alcohol and they are highly inflammable, so you don't want your hand to catch on fire. So that is the safety measure that you all have to take care of. Having said that, the second rule and the most important rule that we need to follow is that stay at a distance from each other. Now, the WHO recommends a distance of 6 feet from each other, but in case that's not possible, stay at a safe distance while commuting, while talking to each other. Do not shake hands with each other, avoid contact of all kinds. The third and a very important rule for safety during this pandemic is the using of masks and face shields, which are readily available. Now, these are available in different designs, and the general public can make use of cloth masks, while the N95 masks without the valve, of course, and the triple layer masks should be left for doctors and healthcare professionals who are more at risk of contracting the virus because they come in contact with patients a day in and out. Having said that, let's come to the crux of today's episode. Is there something more than these three cardinal rules that we ought to be doing to help ourselves, to maximize protection, to optimize health, to keep this coronavirus at bay? Is there something that we need to do or we ought to be doing in order to allay our fears and concerns about this virus? Are we falling short of doing something that can offer us more protection? Well, the answer is yes. What I'm now going to tell you is not some rocket science, but these are simple tips on how to ideally go about your day, especially in these not so ideal times. Okay, so picture this. It is morning, you wake up. And what is the first thing you do? For a very long time, the answer to this question for me was reaching out for my phone. But this changed recently after I realized how it had started adversely affecting my health. And it had started affecting the general tone of my day. So since then, I have been trying to avoid the usage of electronic devices, be it Kindle, be it iPad, be it your phone. I have been avoiding the usage of any kind of electronic device at least 30 minutes to 1 hour before going to sleep and after waking up in the morning. Now, there's a scientific basis behind this, of course. Now, we got to avoid using our electronic devices like our phones before going to sleep because our body recognizes the blue light coming from the phone as sunlight. And this interferes with the melatonin production, and the circadian rhythm is affected, and this disrupts our sleep cycle. So obviously, when our sleep cycle is affected, this has an adverse effect on our health. So that is for the night bit. In the morning when you wake up, you got to avoid accessing your phone for at least 1 hour after you wake up. This is because as soon as you wake up, you will find yourself inundated with messages and texts and calls, maybe from work. Because most people, especially in this pandemic, are working from home. So it is quite likely that you will be receiving texts from work. And the pressure of keeping up with all of this, with social media, with texts and emails and replying to comments and reading tweets, and all this distracts you from what you actually ought to be doing. So my advice is keep your phone on flight mode before you go to bed. So this way, when you wake up in the morning, you will not be blitzkrieged by messages and calls, and you will be in a better position to do what you ought to be doing. Now, what is it that you ought to be doing? You ought to be prioritizing your day. Personally, ever since I stopped accessing my phone in the morning, I have started waking up and making a mental note of all the things that I want to get done during the day. Now, sometimes when my mind is too chaotic, I switch over to pen and paper and I start making small lists or listicles wherein I note down what needs to be done or what I need to get sorted. And this helps me organize my time better. It helps me complete more jobs than I can even imagine. So what you need to do is you need to just chart out your day and accordingly execute. Mornings are the best time to exercise as well. So you can resume with your Zumba and your aerobics. You can go for a jog or a walk. If you're staying somewhere remote and where if you can walk without coming in contact with too many people, then you can go for a 15 minutes walk to begin with, and then you can slowly increase the time duration of the walk. Now, in case you're staying in crowded and cramped up cities, then it's hardly possible to go out without coming in contact with people. And people are something that we want to avoid during these times. So for them, I would say any form of exercise is exercise good enough. Just remember that the basic idea behind exercising is that you got to keep yourself active by moving your muscles. So move every muscles, do your stretch exercises, even meditation and yoga will do. Even climbing up and down the stairs, pacing up and down the corridors will do. So, as soon as you exercise, you will feel this burst of positive energy, and you will feel much happier than you feel without exercising. Now, this is because our body releases endorphins, and endorphins have a way of balancing out our stress hormones. Now, the stress hormones are right now, our stress levels are really high. I'm sure our adrenaline is hitting the roof, and what we desperately need is some way to balance it. So, what better way than exercise? Next, it's time for breakfast. So, what is the ideal breakfast that we need to have in these corona times? Where I would say make disciplined and informed choices when it comes to any meal, not just breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. Make your informed choices. Now, for breakfast, I would suggest that the best option would be a bowl of freshly cut fruits, but fresh fruits are not always available. So, you can start your day with food that is energy dense, that keeps you satiated for longer, so that you don't need to munch on or you don't need to binge on your munchies in between. Now, what we tend to do is, especially in difficult times, we tend to eat a lot of comfort food. And comfort food is not necessarily hungry, because although it makes you feel good about yourself, it does not provide you with the much needed nutrients that are required for good health. So, what do we have instead of a comfort food? We choose a balanced food instead of comfort food. So, an ideal breakfast during these times will should include whole wheat, or you can have your idli dosa, whole wheat rotis, or whole grain bread, maybe your ragi or jawar chillas. The basic point is we got to avoid refined sugars, refined foods. They need to be avoided. Also, a fistful of dried fruits are very essential. So, in case you want to incorporate that, there would be nothing like it. So, a fistful of almonds, pumpkin seeds, maybe flax seeds, or even peanuts. These are foods rich in antioxidants, and antioxidants, you can say antioxidants and proteins is the need of the hour. So just remember, when it comes to choosing your meals, choose a balanced, nutritious meal over comfort food. And also, now this is a small tip that I would suggest everyone should do. Now, we spend a lot of time deciding what to have. So the time spent in deciding what to have is much more than the time we put in to actually make the meal. So why not make a chart at the start of every week on what we are going to have throughout the week? So I would suggest, or every Monday, you make a chart of what you're going to have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now, it may not necessarily work because we are whimsical like that, but it does give you a kind of semblance of order, of discipline, of knowing what you're going to do. So plan ahead. That is the key word, plan ahead. So, and that's what we need to do, especially now. So once you've done that, you will observe that you can work better, even concentrate better, because if you eat right, then your body knows that your body is happy, and your body knows that it can enhance your productivity. So another thing that we need to take care of is our vitamins, our vitamin intake. Now, as we all know, we have limited our outdoor activities during this pandemic for obvious reasons, and so we are lacking in certain nutrients and certain vitamins. Now, for example, vitamin D, a major source of vitamin D comes from sunlight. Now, we hardly step out of the house during these times, so it is quite natural that our vitamin D levels are more likely to be lowered. So, hence, we need to incorporate special vitamin D supplements in our diet. So, once you have your breakfast, you can fortify yourself with vitamins, and then most essential vitamins being vitamin D, vitamin B complex, vitamin C, and vitamin E. Now, also, zinc is also beneficial in small amounts, but make sure you don't increase the dosage of zinc, because an overdosage of zinc may result in zinc toxicity, and we wouldn't want that. Now, why are these vitamins important? Now, vitamin E is rich in antioxidants, and like I said before, the benefits of antioxidants is tremendous. So we have to make sure we have enough of vitamin E. Now, vitamin E is also a fat-soluble vitamin, so too much of it is also bad. It can cause hypervitaminosis, but we need to incorporate it in various forms, in supplements, and in our diet. Now, vitamin C is, on the other hand, is a water soluble vitamin, and it is used. It has these protective properties against cold, against respiratory infections. It automatically, with the vitamin C, helps you to ward off a nasty cold. Also, vitamin C has some amount of anti-inflammatory properties. Now, a vitamin B complex is another essential vitamin supplement that we need to have. Vitamin B is a water-soluble vitamin again, and it is important because it is a kind of immunity booster. It boosts up our immunity, strengthens our immune system, and helps to keep the infections at bay. Now all these vitamins, it should be remembered that these are supplements and these are adjuvants, but they cannot be mistaken for a cure for COVID-19. These are just to promote health and to strengthen your immunity. Now, unfortunately, we haven't come up with a cure yet, but we are hopeful. Remember the vaccine we spoke about? So, hope springs eternal. Now, at this point, I would like to mention two monitoring devices that are important during these times because they help us to assess the situation at hand. One is a pulse oximeter that is readily available offline or in online stores as well. Now, a pulse oximeter is a user-friendly handheld device that fits in the palm of your hand. Now, what you need to do is you just need to insert your index finger in the pulse oximeter, and it will give you a reading of your oxygen saturation. And modern devices will also display your pulse rate and respiratory rate. Now, these are vitals that will help you diagnose COVID. And what happens is the oxygen saturation, in layman's terms, is just the amount of oxygen in your blood. So in COVID-19, what happens is the oxygen saturation goes down and the patient is breathless, so the respiratory rate goes up. So with this pulse oximeter, you can find out what your oxygen saturation level is within the confines of your home. So anything above 90 is good, but preferably your oxygen saturation should be 95 to 100. If your oxygen saturation dips below 90, then it's time to ask for help because you might be just be having COVID. So the second device that I wanted to talk about is a spirometer, and this name I'm sure is not unfamiliar to people with pre-existing respiratory conditions like asthma and COPD. Now, in this scenario, a spirometer can be used to perform certain breathing exercises that will improve the lung capacity, that will improve the capacity of your lungs. And it will also be a device to monitor how much your lung capacity is. So other than these two devices, there are, of course, oxygen concentrators, oxygen canisters, but that is too much in detail, and those are not really needed right now. So, another common complaint that I see most working from home employees make during this pandemic is that they find it tough to concentrate on their work. We have all been there, we have done that, we have felt miserable and found it tough to concentrate and found our attention span wavering. Um, Now, firstly, forgive yourself because it's just the pandemic and everybody it's not your fault. Everybody's going through this phase right now. Productivity is low generally, but even in this desperate situation, how do we increase our productivity? That is the question. Now, I've heard people say that if you dress up like you're going to work, then automatically your mind tends to believe that you are actually going to work and your productivity skyrockets. That's what they have to say. Well, I'm not too sure of that because spritzing a little perfume won't make my mind believe that I'm going to work. It's quite a stubborn mind, and it knows where it is, and it knows what it wants to do. And if it is feeling low, it is feeling low. Um, so, and I'm the sort of person who would love to be in pajamas all day. So for people like me, it is a little difficult to be at home and yet be dressed in their formal best in order to get their productivity up and going. So I have figured out a way to increase my productivity, to give my working desk a professional aura. So what I do is I have, since the pandemic has started, I have gone through my phases of ups and downs, of mood swings, and then I have reached a point wherein I decided enough is enough. I had to get my work going. So I started off by keeping my desk well organized. I kept all the things that were required within easy reach and I decluttered I threw out all the things that were not needed. So, my advice to you all is declutter your desk, your working space, be it at home or be it in your office. Declutter it, quantify it if you must. Strategize in such a way that you can concentrate better because you have everything that you need within easy reach. Now, this helps you focus much better. Even in these trying times, you will feel that your attention span will not waver as much. And also, I have read about this Pomodoro technique. Again, I must mention that this is from the book Ikigai, and this is a technique that the Japanese highly recommend. Now, the Pomodoro technique is a technique that I have been following since the last 15 odd days, and it has been working in my favor. Now, this technique is it's something like this. That the Japanese say that in order to increase your productivity and improve and boost your creativity, you need to split up your work. Like you work for 25 minutes and take a break for 5 minutes, or you work for 50 minutes and take a break for 10 minutes. So, in this way, if you do that every 25 minutes or every 50 minutes, you will find that you get your work done much faster. You get it, it increases your efficiency. It may not it may you will feel more satisfied. It may not be a very quick job, but it will be a job which is done up to your satisfaction. It will be you will be satisfied with what you're doing. So this is called a Pomodoro technique. Now it's time for lunch. We have finished breakfast, then we have done whatever we had to do. We have touched upon exercise. Now it's lunchtime. Now, again, I have to remind you, energy dense, balanced meal. Eat what you should be eating, not what makes you happy. Also, here it's time to make an important point. Do not make drastic alterations in the portion size or the content of your meal. Like if you are a person who has never been eating egg and you suddenly want to incorporate it in your diet because it has a high protein content, that is the wrong way to go about it. That will do more harm than good. So eat what you have always been eating, but make sure that it is you are making it more nutritious, more nourishing by incorporating by making slight changes, not major changes. Another thing is always stop eating when you're 80% full. Don't wait to be 100% full. That way, you will prevent and avoid bloating issues, and you will feel more energetic. Now, all these tips should take care of your physical health. With that, we come to the last segment of the episode, the part which I had mentioned earlier as being the most crucial. Yes, I'm talking about mental health, the one element of health that is equally important, if not more important than physical health, but which often goes neglected and overlooked. It goes ignored most of the times. This whole COVID-19 situation, however, has put many things in perspective, including the issue around mental health. Somehow, we are all haunted by this one niggling thought, this fear of not knowing, of the inevitable, of not knowing how and where we are going with this. To a great extent, we have all succeeded in sticking to the rules, but as the days go by and we see the rising stats of active cases, it's quite natural to feel disappointed. Like just the other day, I was feeling extremely irritable and angry, and for no particular reason. I just couldn't put my finger on it. I was feeling down and depressed, and I decided to do what I usually do when I'm feeling this way. I slept for a good 3 hours. I woke up and I reflected on how I had been feeling. And that is when I realized that it's the whole pandemic. You are not at fault. It's the whole pandemic that gets to you at times. So next time you feel sad and low at the situation we are facing, remember to forgive yourself. But also remember that everybody is going through this phase. So be kind. And then this period is not to last. It is temporary. No matter how you see it, it's going to pass. However, while we are in this together, let's make sure that we support each other through this, that we see each other through this pandemic. Call up that friend you haven't caught up with since ages. Speak to extended family. Spend quality time with family. Do all the things that matter. Do all the things that you did not have time for earlier. At the risk of sounding repetitive, communicate. That is the key word. Communicate, talk, even when you feel you don't want to. Sometimes we are too tired and we feel that talking will not help. But remember, communicating, expressing always helps. So hold on to those who matter. And having said that, stay away from toxic people, stay away from toxic forwards, stay away from toxic people sending toxic forwards. A lot of misinformation is being circulated on social media and on WhatsApp. So try your best to stay away from these people, cut them off from your life if you want. It's totally fine to cut off people who depress you, who make you anxious, who instill negative thoughts in you. And you don't need that kind of baggage, especially now. So stay away from unnecessary WhatsApp forwards, inauthentic websites. Rely on only guaranteed and authentic websites like WHO and ICMR for your pandemic information. And while sharing, please remember to pass this on forward only when you are very sure of its authenticity. So the next time you receive a WhatsApp forward of dubious nature, do not just forward it to a million other people, because that's how misinformation goes around and it becomes news. So stop that from happening, and support everyone and help them cope in this pandemic, because that's exactly what you would want them to do for you. Also, you can learn a new skill. I personally have learned a life-saving skill. I have learned to cook quite a bit. It is a life-saving skill, which I have realized now with all these lockdowns happening. And I'm glad I am able to cook in order to survive, at least. So you can do that. You can learn a new skill. You could learn a new language, maybe. For people heavily invested in art and in literature, Of course, we should create more. We should, in the words of Princess Leia, take your broken heart and make it into art. So maybe this is the time that we take our COVID heart or a heart filled with COVID dread and make it into art. Meditation and yoga is also going to help a lot. It helps you relax yourself. So if you are into meditation and yoga, there's nothing like it. Another thing I have noticed is that since a lot of people are at home, I've seen this in my friends, and I have been tempted to do it myself. Since we are at home, there have been times where I'm very tempted to open up these shopping websites, only to look. But it starts off that way, and then I end up doing some mindless shopping that I may not even be interested in the first place. But that is what is happening since we have a lot of time to ourselves and our leisure activities have been cut down to the bare minimum. We tend to invest our energy and our time, and needless to forget, our money as well, in online shopping and shopping for things that we don't really need. So I would say here, I would like to remind everyone, and myself included, that we need to remind ourselves that there is going to be a tomorrow. So no matter how negative we get, we have to remind ourselves that today is not the end of the world. There is going to be a tomorrow, and we need to save up a little for that tomorrow. So we can't afford to blow up all our savings on shopping today itself. So having said that, invest in something which comes for free, like learn a new skill, or of course, if you have to make a necessary expenditure, go right ahead. But I'm talking about the useless stuff. You know what I'm talking about, all you compulsive shoppers. Long story short, do what makes you happy. Do whatever makes you feel good about yourself, that wouldn't make you regret doing it at any point in time. Now, if that's a lot of weight to carry, and if you still feel down and depressed because you are not getting creative enough, you're not able to get your mind fixated on what you want to do, then I will, at the risk of sounding repetitive, I will say forgive yourself, because we are survivors of a pandemic. So, in a sense, we are winners already. So, be kind to yourself, and you'll get there slowly but surely. Like Calvin said, we cannot turn on creativity like a faucet, but soon enough, we will get over this phase, because nothing lasts forever, and we both know hearts can change, and it's hard to hold a candle in the cold November rain. Okay, sorry, I just went a little Guns N' Roses out there. But having said that, we all know hope comes from the least expected places. So keep looking, keep searching, don't stop. You may find hope in a friend you thought you didn't have, or something as silly as an episode of your favorite sitcom, or maybe even a podcast like Morning Chai and Ikigai. Okay, that was some seriously shameless plugging there. But the point being, don't give up, don't quit, don't lose hope, not just yet. With that, we come to the end of this episode of Morning Chai and Ikigai. In case you want to connect with me outside of the pod, I am there on Twitter and Instagram. My handle is Dr. Priyanka Naik. It is Dr. Priyanka Naik. I am also there on Facebook, and I blog at drpriyankanaik.com. Morning Chai and Ikigai is a bi-weekly podcast. So that means my next episode is going to be out on Sunday. Do subscribe to my podcast and rate it and share it if you can. This is your host Priyanka signing out for now. Bye bye.